We know one vote can change the course of history. Representative Nancy Mace joins us. Blaze News, The Mandate starts right now. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jill Savage, joined by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
Great to be here, as always. This is an exciting show today, one of our favorite topics.
This is, and Representative Nancy Mace tried to hold Ilhan Omar accountable after Omar mocked Charlie Kirk's assassination, but the effort failed in Congress by just one vote. We have 4 Republicans, including Cory Mills, who sided with the Democrats to kill the censure, which sparked outrage inside the GOP. So Representative Mace joins us now with much more than just the vote. So we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being here. So walk us through why you felt it was important, first of all, to just bring up this censure resolution against Ilhan Omar.
Well, we saw in the wake of Charlie Kirk's political assassination and murder, some of the worst come out in people advocating for violence, celebrating his murder, calling Republicans and conservatives like all of us fascists, Hitler, Nazis. That's why Charlie was killed, because he was villainized and he was killed over free speech and his words. And this was celebrated. And we as a party, we as a country, conservatives, Republicans, independents, and some Democrats, we all banded together and said this was wrong. And then you had many on the left and leaders in the Democrat Party like Ilhan Omar sharing content, calling us and Charlie Kirk terrorists, advocating for violence, the very thing that got him killed. And we as a country they have to take responsibility. And I said from the very beginning that Democrats owned this. And what she did was egregious. And people have been censured for far less. And what I wanted to do was censure her on the floor of the House of Representatives. I also wanted her removed from her committee assignments, because there must be consequences. And this is not an attack on free speech. You can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean you're free from consequences. It's like we've all been advocating. We don't want teachers indoctrinating our children, those who celebrate murder. I don't want an anesthesiologist who was celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk with me in the room next time I have to go under. I might not wake up, right? And so there have to be consequences for people, particularly in responsible positions like Ilhan Omar. And we failed by one vote. It's very disappointing.
It beggars belief. I mean, what the vote was, 214 to 213, I believe. One vote, you lose. Tell us how frustrating that was, and were you surprised that you had 4 Republicans turning against you?
Right. And, they wanted to use the excuse of, well, this is free speech. She's allowed to say what she wants. There shouldn't be consequences. But what they did was the very opposite of that. They took away my free speech, my right to debate the resolution. This wasn't a vote on the bill. This was just a vote to debate my resolution that would censure her and throw her off the committee. So ironically, these 4 Republicans who said, well, this is a First Amendment issue, took away my First Amendment to actually debate the resolution and just get a vote. That there's nothing more about free speech than be able to debate a bill or an ideology or a resolution, et cetera. And they took that right away from me at the end of the day. And we all know what this was about. I mean, we had Cory Mills, it failed by one vote. And we know why he did this, because Democrats were going to censure him for the allegations and behavior that he has conducted. And so this was quid pro quo. It was very self-serving. We have a President Trump wants Ilhan Omar expelled or impeached from Congress. And this was the very least we could do, because we're not going to get 2/3 and impeach her from Congress. That's not going to happen. We don't have the votes. But this is something we could have done as another measure to hold her accountable for her words.
And we know, again, the reports in Axios that Representative Cory Mills was going to have a censure vote of his own that he was going to have to face. And it has a lot to do with the reporting that we've done here at Blaze Media, bringing forth some of the interesting circumstances around Mills and his life, his business, etc. Stolen valor. There's a lot to get into with Congressman Cory Mills. So what have you learned about the congressman since the vote? Because it has shifted, I would say, public opinion, because we at Blaze Media, they were asking a lot of questions like, wait, this guy's supposed to be a hero. Why are you guys going after him? And then they see this vote and they say, wait a minute, hold on. Why is Congressman Cory Mills, who we think is a good guy, Why is he voting this way? So what have you learned since then?
Well, he ran as MAGA. He ran as America First. He ran as someone who was endorsed by Donald Trump, and he's going against what the president even indicated he wanted, because he wanted her expelled or impeached from Congress. And and so I think that raised a lot of eyebrows as why. And then we saw the press coverage uncovered that, hey, the Democrats dropped their censure against him. This was a horse trade, nothing more than that. They used it to hold it over his head to get his vote so that Ilhan Omar's vote would fail. That's all that this was about, was a quid pro quo. And then because there was so much attention on this particular vote, his vote, and why it defied the base, it defied MAGA, it defied America First, then that's when I saw the Blaze article and other articles. And then I saw these accounts of veterans, and then I saw CoryMillsWatch.com, and I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what was up. And then I saw all this reporting, and I've talked to so many veterans now, and I'm the daughter of a veteran. I'm a daughter of a retired Army Ranger. My father commanded the first ever Ranger training brigade at Fort Benning back in the 80s. And here you have a member of Congress who lied to get into office. He told people he was an Army Ranger. I talked to two people today who knew him, and they flat out said he was an Army Ranger and was a sniper and all these things. Turns out it was not true. And so when you think about stolen valor, and then you hear from people that were there overseas and say that he allegedly stole the stories of dead soldiers or soldiers who couldn't speak because of their injuries and made them his own, is incredible. And I just I have no forgiveness for people who are going to steal the valor of another man, of another soldier who gave his life or who sacrificed so much. I think it's very admirable that Cory Mills was an ambulance driver. Like, he was, we're not even sure he was trained as a medic. We can't find proof of that right now. But whether you're a medic or an ambulance driver, you have decided to serve your country. That in and of itself is admirable. So there's no reason to lie and say that you're Rambo or 007 or this Ranger, sniper, commando guy that was never, that there was no there. And to hear the pain of these veterans who've come forward because their valor was stolen was really eye-opening. And then I spoke to General Bray over the weekend.
Tell us about that.
Well, I just called him up. There's a DA form 638. I didn't serve. I'm not a veteran, but I know that there's this claim that Cory Mills has a Bronze Star. And I did a little bit of digging over the weekend. I spoke to the general who supposedly signed that document, a document that Cory Mills will not bring forward he won't show a citation for a Bronze Star. He won't show the application or the 638 form for the Bronze Star. We'll come to find out the general whose name is on that form didn't even sign it and didn't actually see the document before his signature was placed on it. So to find out all this information, I was floored. And I woke up Monday morning and I figuratively chose violence. And I just said, if we're going to restore trust in the institution of government, trust in the institution of Congress, trust within our party, we have to be willing to acknowledge even when we have our own failures. Because if I'm telling you we got to clean up the Democrats, we got to clean up the left, when we have a mess on our side, we have to be willing to clean it up also. And I can think of nothing more egregious than stolen valor. And the more I dig, the more people I talk to, the worse it gets. I'm sure you guys are probably seeing the same thing.
I love hearing someone in Congress say this, because I believe it's the time where we won the election, but we do have to clean house, as it were. And we just don't have time for bad actors. And people at home certainly express to us all the time they're sick of people who don't understand MAGA or who are pretending. But in this case, it's interesting because you did choose violence. I saw some of that violence online, and it was good. I mean, you were asking real questions. What's wrong with that? But tell us a little bit about your interactions with the congressman, since you said online that he had threatened you and that you guys had a back and forth. So trace that out for us since the vote.
Well, the night of the vote, I let the president know that the four individuals that voted against the measure, he's very deeply passionate about Ilhan Omar and why it went down the way that it went down. And I guess Congressman Mills got wind of that and threatened me over text. And I just responded, for a guy who's accused of threatening women, you're not really doing yourself a lot of favors here. And he blew up my phone. He started texting me. He called me, and it really made me feel uncomfortable. I was like, there's just something not right. And I don't know what nail I hit on the head. Like I didn't realize that I had accidentally like started to peel back the layers of onions that the Blaze and other reporters have been working on for months to uncover what has happened. I didn't know about the allegations with the women and the restraining order, the bruises, that sort of thing, or the stolen valor or the alleged arms deals. I had no idea about any of that, and I was floored, but I certainly struck a nerve with him, and it's just gone downhill really since then. And I'm not someone who's going to back down from a fight. And I certainly let him know what I thought about the whole ordeal. And he blew me up on Monday, and wanted to defend his stolen valor claim that he was blown up twice. He was not. And he even sent me that photo with the blood on his leg and a text that was basically, here's the second hit. Like he got hit, and that's not even his blood. And so when you realize, wow, everything is a lie, I'm beside myself. And we as Republicans, we support our military, we support our veterans, we support those who are protecting our freedoms here and abroad. And I can think of nothing worse than spitting on the grave of a dead soldier who gave his life for our country, with someone who, is taking those stories and making them their own. And I did the pain that causes me as the daughter of a veteran, the daughter of a Army Ranger. We can't have imposters in our party. And now, because of this negativity, the negative press he's been attracting for months locally, his seat's at risk if we don't replace him. And then when you look at the allegations of the arms dealing, the bags of cash, allegedly, is this guy a national security threat? He sits as the intel chair on the Foreign Affairs Committee. How the heck is he even on this committee if these allegations are swirling around him? We can't have someone who's stolen valor on the House Armed Services Committee. Like, what are we even talking about? And so that's why it's very confusing. And the more I learn, the more people I talk to, the worse it gets. And when you look under one rock, there are 10 more rocks. And it's a never ending rabbit hole with this guy. And I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, you have absolutely hit the nail on the head, because your story of what you're dealing with the congressman, we can say, 10 times over with the people that we have talked to behind the scenes as well. And we look at Congressman Cory Mills, and it's not like he's doing a great job serving his district. He has had one town hall on the phone back in April for his district, and he has now made 4 trips overseas to the Middle East. One over New Year's Eve, he went to Iraq and Kuwait, and Qatar now apparently is thrown in there. Dubai over Valentine's Day, where there happened to be an international arms expo with 200,000 people. I'm sure that was just a coincidence. Easter, he was in Syria and Turkey. And now, this weekend, still today, Cory Mills is over in Syria meeting with the finance minister over there. So when you look at just all of these different things that are adding up, like, how do you view this current situation?
Well, I'm deeply concerned, and I think this is an urgent matter. I believe that there is a national security issue surrounding this behavior. I put a question to some folks today to ask if this trip to Syria this week was approved by the House Ethics Committee. I want to know who paid for it. I want to know who was there, how it was funded, who we met with. I am very concerned because of his ties to the arms company. There is a OCC investigation there that has been referred to the House Ethics Committee. I don't think there's been any resolution there, but it does concern me that we have someone who has this top secret security clearance, who has this alleged connection with the arms company still, that there are a lot of questions there, that there is a national security concern. And I think it is immediate. And I think it's something that we need to address as the House. And it deeply concerns me. And he shouldn't be on foreign affairs, let alone be the chairman of the Intel subcommittee on foreign affairs. I just think it's wild that he is still on that committee. I will be calling for his resignation from that committee. I will also be calling for his resignation from the House Armed Services Committee. We cannot have someone on House Armed Services who has stolen valor. It boggles the mind that we that we are allowing this to happen. And I think it's only going to get worse with the reporting that you all are doing. It seems like every day, every few days, you're coming out with new information, and it's really shocking.
Well, I mean, I speak for both of us and everyone at Blaze when we say thank you for your attention to this. It really does mean a lot that members of Congress are taking responsibility and actually not backing down in these fights to someone who's bullied a lot of people over the years. We can't walk away from you though without talking about the fact that you are in Congress, but you are also running for something else right now. Tell us about the launch of this campaign.
Well, we announced our run for governor of South Carolina in August during the August recess. And I think we have a huge opportunity in the 2026 midterms to install America First MAGA governors to implement President Trump's agenda state by state. We have Byron Donalds in Florida. We have Vivek Ramaswamy in Ohio. We have Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee, and maybe Tim Burchett will run for Senate. That'll be a race, but we have an enormous opportunity here, and I want to save my country, and I think we can do that state by state. Last year in Bright Red, South Carolina, we had a sanctuary sheriff. We're not a sanctuary state, but our state leaders, everyone in our delegation turned a blind eye to a sanctuary sheriff who was letting out illegals who were rapists, murderers, and pedophiles. Really egregious things. We have the highest state income tax in the Southeast, almost as high as Massachusetts. And so we need someone who's going to come in and be law and order, cut taxes, cut regulations, cut government, just like Donald Trump is doing. And if folks want to chip in or help out, they can go to nancymace.org. We've had over 12 or 13,000 donations in the last 6 to 7 weeks. It's been incredible, not just from folks in South Carolina, but all across the country.
That is incredible. nancymace.org. And, I think that it speaks volumes that you're willing to not only call out the Democrats and Ilhan Omar when she needs it, but also trying to clean house on the right, because this is a moment in time that we are not going to get back. And the truth matters, and saving this country matters. Nancy Mace, Representative, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and God bless.
All right. When we come back, we'll have Chris Bedford joining us right after this. Well, this is our big thank you for watching and listening to this show. And Blaze TV only exists because of people like you. It's not a PBS commercial, though, but we know that people out there, they settle for the watered down coverage and endless spin. That's not you. This has never been about one voice or one company. It's about a movement of people who refuse to sit on the sidelines. And we all know right now we need to carry this mission forward. So when you subscribe, you're not just supporting a show, you're actually making sure that the truth has a platform for today and the next generation. Join us at Blaze TV. It's blazetv.com/BNT, and you can get $20 off right now. It's as low as $8 a month for an annual plan, and you can be a part of shaping the future. It's blazetv.com/BNT. Are America's media's giants quietly bowing to domestic terror threats? A coordinated campaign of intimidation by Antifa and the leftist radicals is spilling out from the streets into the corporate boardrooms. Chris Bedford joins us now, a little later than usual, but Chris, it's still good to see you. So we know that Donald Trump has formally designated Antifa as a domestic terror organization. So what's the significance of this move? What does this actually mean? And will it change how they're treated by law enforcement?
It's going to be hard. It's going to take some actual time to figure out exactly what it means. Traditionally, what a ruling like this would do is, one, put this at the top priority, top of the different federal law enforcement agencies' priorities. And that's going to happen anyways. This is a really clear declaration to everyone from Kash Patel over to Homeland Security that Antifa must be treated with the utmost of attention. It's got to be prioritized. It's got to be taken care of. Then, traditionally these orders would do things like unlock different tools that the federal government has at its disposal. It would mobilize intelligence apparatuses and the ability to follow suspects across state lines in a more easy manner with terror groups, with foreign terror groups, which is what we've always done. It would allow American intel to skip some of the warrant process for listening in on different devices, or go through basically an expedited version, something that a lot of folks have complained about over the years. The thing about it is It's not been done before for a domestic group, and with good reason. You don't want the federal government to be able to just make these sweeping declarations about domestic groups, or they could come after you. And that's a real threat, not just some of the whataboutisms that you hear all the time, I think, from the American right and the American left, when they actually try to use the powers that are available. This is a new power that'd be made available. Go after taxes, go after bank accounts, go after funders. All of these, a lot of these things are already in the toolboxes of these federal agencies, these federal law enforcement agencies and domestic intelligence agencies. They're already things that they can use. This provides them some cover to go after people in a way that's already really within the law. I mean, you remember, an executive order is basically a glorified press release. It doesn't carry the force of law as much as its directions to the agencies and then protections for them when they actually implement these sorts of things, and if once they get sued back. So those are some of the things that are available, and this is hopefully some of the things that we'll see against a group that really has been the violence has just massively upticked from them in the last 9 years.
Well, Chris, it's time to talk about your own Beltway brief. We need to talk about that. People aren't subscribing to that. If you aren't subscribed, you should just go to Blaze Media and sign up for it, because it's good stuff every time. Today's Beltway brief is about something a lot of people are talking about around the water cooler and otherwise, and that is Jimmy Kimmel and ABC. And I'll say, you know, when I was driving around today, I went out to a lunch. I went by the headquarters of Nexstar, which is one of the affiliates along with Sinclair that dropped or suspended the show for a little bit. And outside of Nexstar, there were what looked like kind of a boomer protest, but there were a number of protesters there for a while, and they had signs about free speech and supporting Kimmel. I did send two of the boys down, but they had already disappeared before we could ask them who was paying them to do that. But I found it interesting that they were out there. So tell us about what's going on here.
So ABC and Disney's the owner, basically moved back their decision. They said they essentially suspended Kimmel for 4 shows and a couple more days. And then they said they're going back. And right around this evening, he's going to be having Governor Gavin Newsom on, who, by the way, is one of the politicians he almost never makes jokes about. Almost never, which is shocking because he provides plenty of good fodder for an actual comedian to go after. This is a sign that he's going to double down. And ABC has not actually solved any of the issues that they have to deal with here. I mean, they didn't work this through with Sinclair. They didn't work this through with Nexstar. Those affiliates carry over 70 CBS stations. Like, for example, there were watch parties here in Washington, D.C., where the bars were saying, come and watch Jimmy Kimmel, he's back, free speech. Oh, sorry, Sinclair actually owns the DC ABC affiliate, and there will be no Jimmy Kimmel tonight. There's no way for us to show you the show. You know, that's hysterical on one level, but it's actually a serious business thing. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel's losing that company millions of dollars a year. His ratings, as far as late night network television go, are an absolute joke. They're just simply not good. They don't keep up with anything historically. That they cost a lot of money. And they've got a host who now appears because he hasn't really actually been taught a lesson here. And he's just had a lot of friends come in and back him up to have learned absolutely nothing. It's not like he's having a Republican on today. It's not like he's having Erica Kirk on today. He's having Gavin Newsom, who actually did know Charlie and through the podcast. And maybe he will take and give us an interesting take here. But it's certainly a double down by Jimmy Kimmel. He hasn't learned anything. The affiliates are ticked off. They haven't been included in any discussions, at least reportedly, that we've been able to figure out. And they said earlier today, that they hadn't been included in anything. So they're doubling down on the problem with a money-losing host who continues to alienate Christians, Republicans, and a whole lot of just normal, decent Americans. This is a really bad business strategy. Disney may be setting him up to let him go for another reason in 18 months and say, all right, we gave it a shot, and try to avoid the outrage, try to avoid the death threats, try to avoid people shooting at different offices, left-wing radicals. But right now, it seems like Jimmy Kimmel's set up for even more obnoxiousness and even more lost revenue.
Yeah, 2 things, both coming from the Hollywood Reporter. The Walt Disney Company, in a new statement, say that they're moving this to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. And then sources say that Jimmy Kimmel is not planning on apologizing on his show tonight. They said that this has been grossly mischaracterized by MAGA. Basically, how dare we have any feelings and say anything after the assassination and horrible comments by Jimmy Kimmel after Charlie Kirk's assassination. Chris.
Yeah, he's not going to apologize. That's one of the reasons why he was suspended in the first place, is he refused to apologize. And it was that combination. Everyone wants to blame Brendan Carr over at the FCC, but Brendan Carr just provided some ammunition and some backup for the affiliates. He doesn't actually power over ABC like that. It's more all the channels that use the public spectrum that air the ABC programs. He could go after, and he could give them some muscle and some backbone to say, no, we're not going to deal with that. The main thing here were the business interests. The main thing here was the fury, the anger. The main thing here was just how insensitive it was. And then when he talked to network executives, they said, we need you to go out there and calm things down. And he said no, essentially. That's how the conversations have been characterized. He told them what he was planning to say that evening. And they said, you know what? You're actually going to say nothing this evening. We're not going to do this right now. But just 2 days after the funeral seems far too soon, especially when he's not going to say no. Sorry. And, he doesn't know people who disagree with him. He and his wife don't hang out with people who disagree with them. If you walk into the Nexstar headquarters, right around not too far from Blaze, or you walk over to Sinclair headquarters, which is north of Baltimore, you might find a diversity of race and religion and people, whoever you're into, are attracted to, or this and that age, but you're not going to usually. You're also going to find in those offices diversity of political opinion. You're going to find people who maybe if they didn't vote for Donald Trump, at least voted for Mitt Romney and John McCain. You're going to find Republicans. You're going to find people go to church on Sunday. You're not going to find that in Manhattan at a lot of these television studios, even the ones that are ostensibly conservative. You're not going to find all the church-going people that you would normally find throughout the broader swaths of America that they claim to represent. So no one's in there telling them, hey, you guys really messed up, or this is really important, or this is a really sensitive subject. People are cheering them on and saying, you stand for free speech. I mean, if you go through the guests that Jimmy Kimmel's had, the jokes he's made, like Newsbusters has over at the Media Research Center, you find that over the last 3-4 years, it's been almost 100% political guests as Democrats. It's been, I think, 93% of the jokes have been about conservatives and attacking Republicans. This is just a platform, I guess, to be a left-wing ideologue who's not very funny. And that really ticks people off outside of that little awful bubble of Manhattan Island.
Yeah, and here's what's going to happen, right? I mean, we know what's going to happen. Gavin Newsom is going to come on air, and they're going to turn this around like Donald Trump and the FCC were trying to threaten them. It's a free speech issue. They're going to repeat another false narrative, more misinformation, and the Democratic Party's media arm, which is all these companies, will keep on trucking. And I think the interesting thing about what's going on now is you've pissed both sides off. So I could easily see, even here in Irving, I could see people protesting on the other side of those protesters if they keep showing up to Nexstar in this city alone, because you got both sides angry now. And we need to talk about this, Chris. This is really important what just happened. We haven't spoken yet about what happened in Sacramento, where you have a deranged leftist shooter, clearly politically motivated, going after an ABC station. Of course, in California, Gavin Newsom's Californian. He's frickin' let go, right, by the police and walks free after a few days. And the feds have come in and said, no, this guy has committed crimes, and we're going to take care of this. We're going to prosecute him. But there's this question that Sinclair, for instance, wanted to put the Charlie Kirk special on, right? And they it's not on there now. And it seems to be that leftist threats, right? Talk about free speech. Leftist threats are having an impact in these corporate offices. Is this true? I mean, because this is something we need to talk about a lot more.
Yeah, I think that they are. I think when Disney says we need to calm things down by acquiescing to flip out demands like this, that they're not afraid of just the boomers out in front of their offices protesting. They're afraid of people getting hurt. They're afraid of a flurry of death threats. They're afraid of the fact that there was a left-wing radical who fired a gun at one of their offices or one of their satellite offices. And this is just such shocking incompetence. I mean, like criminal incompetence by the local police who arrest this guy who, for political reasons, was shooting at a headquarters, an office building with people in it, and in his car had literature and had his home that backed up his ideas, and in his social media had wild rantings, and at home had calendar dates marked for bad things happening to specific people. And then they let him go on bail. I think the FBI should actually, and the Department of Justice should investigate that police department. Just like, by the way, Democrats would absolutely investigate a police department that failed to act on someone who was accused of a racist killing or something like that, or who released that person on bail when they had already made terroristic threats or had evidence of terroristic threats in their home about other prominent people, other prominent Democrats or whatever. This is something that should be cracked down on. Local police's complete unwillingness to follow the rules here, mixed with corporate America's fear of political violence, which I understand. You don't want to put people who work for you in danger, are combining to a situation where we're slowly starting to get our answer. And the federal government has to move quickly on this because the American left-wing radicals are not going to ratchet it down. You start to see now liberal newspapers starting to come out with things saying, this is a weird trend we're seeing with left-wing violence suddenly surging. There's something strange going on here. Yeah, you're right. They're probably trying to separate themselves and distance themselves from the maniacs who've been there for so long and are not backing down and are only going to get more violent.
Well, it's time for Share the Arrows. We spend a lot of time talking about politician culture, and we have all the noise and craziness in the world right now, but this is different. If you're a woman or there's someone in your life that you care about, you need to know about Share the Arrows. It's happening October 11th right here in Dallas, and it's hosted by BlazeTV's own Allie Beth Stuckey, and it's built to encourage, equip, and speak truth to women that are trying to stand firm in today's world. So if you've been craving real encouragement and biblical truth, then this is for you. If you're a man out there, you have a woman in your life who might need this, well, listen up, because we know the culture is pulling us the wrong way. This is a chance to reset and get grounded in the truth. All the tickets and details are at sharethearrows.com. That's sharethearrows.com. All right, gentlemen, let's switch gears because you talk about left-wing violence, Chris Bedford. It's American universities. We know this is where Charlie Kirk went to try and, get everybody as early as possible to make sure that they weren't indoctrinated by the lefties on the campuses. This is obviously the activist training camps is really what American universities have turned into. And of course, all funded by our taxpayer dollars. But the good news is, we're all trying to come through and figure out some tools, some things that we can do to help stop this madness. And Bedford, you've been a busy one writing, as you have another Beltway brief. So what can people actually do? Because these leftist universities, right? We had May Mailman on from the administration before, from the Trump administration. They're trying to take little steps here and there. But what can people do right now about this?
Well, there's some easy things that they can do right off the bat in red states. Republicans can take any state university and change its board of regents, put pressure on it and swap it out. I mean, Democrats have for a very long time in blue states put people who really want to have an impact on American education and on what those schools are teaching in those regent positions. And Republicans have rewarded donors who want box tickets to the big football game. And those people just aren't serious about this sort of thing. I'm sorry, you got to figure out another way to get your donors tickets to the big game and an important position, because you need to put people in there who will hold these public universities accountable. But a lot of this is also coming from private universities. And there's a lot of different precedents you can use over there. Some of them are more difficult to push. There's a Supreme Court precedent, Bob Jones University versus United States. Now, that's not a great ruling there, but that essentially allowed the federal government in 1983 to strip the tax-exempt status from Bob Jones University because of a policy they had that banned students or faculty from being in interracial relationships. I think they pretty plainly saw that this was a racist policy, but the Supreme Court ruling said, Not only that, it's against the public policy of the United States, and it is not within what the American people have given charitable status for, which is an extremely broad and extremely sweeping power. Now, if you're teaching revolution and you're teaching the United States is awful, and you're teaching about arming trans and this and that, or that Charlie Kirk should be assassinated, I can confidently say that those things are not within the public policy of the United States and not the kind of thing that anyone ever envisioned or Congress envisioned funding or helping when they awarded 501c3 status to these organizations. So there's a blunt hammer that you can absolutely use. There's also Shapinsky versus New Hampshire, which allows the federal government, supposed to be the states are the front line here, to go after obscenity and incitement to violence. It's basically been narrowed down to fighting words. Now, the states are supposed to do this. It doesn't really help you out in California if you've got some protester shrieking, "I'm going to kill you," and trying to start a mob going at a conservative speaker until they have to cancel, unless that person is seen as violating the speaker's civil rights. Now, this is something that they can actually push from the federal level in that case. But once again, you're going to get kind of mired in some of these difficulties. So I think you're basically going to have to look at the reality that public speech is a federally protected activity. And as such, the federal government has the ability to protect it. You can't just have red states or blue states that say, we're not protecting the rights of some people to speak. The feds can come in there and do that. Incitement to riot is actually a crime that the feds can come in on. Sending threats across state lines, like on social media, Keith Oberman, is something that the feds can get involved in and say, all right, now we've got an interest and now we've actually got a crime. They need to become actively involved in policing these universities, and these universities will begin to police themselves. So change the Board of Regents, go after the money and the 501c3 status of these sorts of things. Look at some of the civil rights violations that are going on and enforce federal statutes on the violence and the threats and the incitement to riots that have been going on against a federally protected activity. And you can start to hurt these colleges and make them police their own.
All music to the ears, Chris, music to my ears, the kind of thing we need to see in spades. I want to focus on the red state problem because in a way that should be the easiest thing, right, that we could do. And people just need to understand this. I mean, if you're at home, you need to demand of your politicians, there's no reason whatsoever that you have complete control over this in a state like Texas, that state universities in Texas are known as these bastions of, liberalism or the extremism, fomenting all this stuff for decades. And everyone acts like, oh, there's nothing we can do. University of Texas at Austin is super liberal. And you're sitting there, like in Austin is a great example, with all these politicians and the governor and everyone else going, who the hell do you think controls the state university? Our money goes to someone, and exactly as you said, they put these trustees on the boards, and what the trustees don't understand, even when they're good-hearted, is that you only change things from the top down here. You're not going to, that's why I left the academy a long time ago. You're not going to change anything as a professor or some low level. You have to have a board and a president that cleans house, and they have to be in there to clean house. But we should talk a little bit about why this is such a problem some more. You're right. Some people just want the box tickets. A lot of times trustees are business people who are either attracted to a school because of the football team or because they think that the academia thing is kind of sexy, something they're not usually part of, makes them seem smart or whatever. But the kind of people they put on are not the warriors you would need to go in and absolutely clean house from the top down.
Yeah, you're right. And we saw some good moves from Governor DeSantis on doing that in Florida. There's a lot of pushback, a lot of fighting when you do that, but some good moves on different universities. I was happy to see Governor Abbott in Texas when a student was out there pretending to be reenacting in a really obnoxious way, Charlie getting murdered in front of a memorial and screaming at people that the governor said expel the student. Mm-hmm. And the student was expelled because it was at a state university. But for a very long time, I have heard people, the same kind of folks who say, don't worry, it'll swing back. Everything's all right. The pendulum goes both ways. We remember Ronald Reagan after Jimmy Carter. Say, that doesn't happen here. That doesn't happen in our schools. No, that's a New York problem. That's a Manhattan problem. That may be a DC problem, but it's not a problem in this town in Texas. Well, I got news for you. It's a problem all over the country. There are no protected conservative Christian snow globes. People need to pay attention, and they'll actually realize that Every one of these schools has a wild teacher, radical teachers. The elementary schools have it, the high schools have it, the colleges have it, who are preaching complete insanity. And there's this idea of it's not happening in my house, it's happening in the neighbor's house is something that red states should reject. And by the way, voters need to demand this stuff. Conservatives and Republicans have really changed the courts. And one of the ways they do that, like in 2016 with Donald Trump, in order to get a lot of people, conservatives voting for him, he said, here's the list of potential Supreme Court nominees that I would consider. Politicians have to put out to satisfy different groups lists of the judges that they would be interested in appointing on the state level. And voters ought to demand that, and organizations ought to demand that on regions. Who are you going to put in charge of education?
Right.
What kind of warriors are you going to put in there? What are their background and what are their promises that I should consider voting for you? Because how seriously are you taking this problem where I hopefully intend to send my children to school someday and not have them coming back hating me, God, and the country?
Yeah, I'm into that. I mean, the one thing we don't have time to get into today is to add to all this is there's not even enough teachers, right, that would be normal in like political science, say. We don't even have enough teachers to replace the lunatics at these institutions. So all the teaching schools have always been communists. I mean, literally communists for a long time. They've been super lefty. So until we start creating new schools that teach the teachers, we're not even going to have enough bodies to throw in there when we get rid of the radicals.
Yeah, it has to be a very long, thought-out plan, and of course, getting started today. Now, I did see a picture. I don't know if it was College Bedford or not today, but we saw Sideburns Bedford today, and I just can't. I mean, Sideburns Bedford is just, it's the new Bedford, right? We have like Professor Bedford, the looks. I can't stop. The people are now going to demand the photo. So see what I did there?
We're going to need to show the photo. We're going to need
what I did there? What
Those
was
are my
that
old
from?
Young Americans for Freedom days. We were protesting against then President Barack Obama. Both of us in that picture I sent out looked a lot younger, I've got to say.
All right. You know what? It's good. It's good every now and then to remind yourself young and fun. And you know what? When Bedford was young and fun, he was going to protests. That's what he was doing with all of his youth. Bedford, so good to see you. Thanks so much.
See you tomorrow.
When we come back, we'll have your replies. It's the best part of the show. We'll have that next.
I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much.
I love that so much. If she wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. And he's the leader of the free world, Matt. That's what we get.
Yeah, this was just vintage Trump. And also the things he's saying about the UN. I mean, this is something that millions of Americans think and feel. It's time to stop pretending. So it was a good day.
Listen, even if the UN wasn't crappy, and we know they are, we were still going to use that as our question today because that clip was so good. So this is why today I wrote on X, why are we still a part of the UN? When was the last time they did anything of substance? Let's go ahead and get right to the replies. John starts us off and says the UN should move to Babylon, where it belongs. I loved that. Just to start things off, why not go a little biblical right away?
Yeah, you could take that in a variety of different ways, I think. But the UN has been, more of a Babel than anything else for a long time, and sort of a sham. I mean, you're always going to have some international organization, I think, in the modern era where everyone gets together. But pretending that it has power and unity is just a really bad idea at this point, and it's responsible for all kinds of garbage over the decades. So I always thought on the right that we all knew this, that we knew that the UN was basically not on team and not on point. But it's great to see a president say it.
So Roy is trying to push back. Roy wrote, Why? If it's this bad with us there, how bad would it be without us? Not sure if that's a good reason. Substance? Well, they do plenty of substantive things, but how many of them are good? That's the real question. Now, the UN, they probably do. They probably do a lot of things. How many of them are good? Great question to my question, Roy.
Yeah, and we know the answer. Not a lot of them are good.
Maybe one.
Not a lot of them are good.
Maybe one thing here and there, broken clock theory.
And again, I mean, I'm not saying you're going to have some organization that, organizes all the nations of the world getting together and talking about things, but you have to understand, I mean, again, the principles of the American founding, anyone from the American founding era would have been able to tell you this should not be an actual governing body. It can't be by its nature, so don't pretend that it is or should be. But you have a lot of globalists out there who have been taught to think that somehow we'll have this kumbaya moment and they should actually have real power, which is very scary when you look at, who actually runs the thing.
And let's go ahead and round out the replies with Jim Bicknell, the Blaze Mandate's 12th man, as his title is on X. We've been giving money to countries that hate us for decades. They never help us. It's time to not only get them out, but kick them out of the building. Go somewhere else. All right, you know what? Common sense. Leave. Stop giving them money. It seems simple.
That is something that I do think the Trump administration internalizes, understands, and is trying to accomplish. And you see it all over this country. You see younger people asking very basic questions that Trump was asking 10 years ago now, and everyone in Washington said he was crazy. How dare you question NATO? How dare you question the EU? How dare you? That you must be crazy. I mean, that's really what they thought. The people, especially part of the national security complex and foreign affairs and people in defense, they all thought this is literally crazy. You could never question these things. It's almost like a religion with them. But you have common sense, ordinary people and younger people saying, I don't know why I'm paying for the bombs on two sides of a war in the Middle East. Like, what is even happening here? And I don't care what the people with PhDs or the experts say. And Trump is not only, saying these things, now he's actually implementing real changes in American foreign policy, and that's a good thing.
Well, maybe it's like the Cory story. How dare you ask questions about Congressman Cory Mills? How dare you? He's a hero. Stop making him look bad. Or people are now starting to read more, investigate more, and the more they learn, Matt, the worse it gets for Congressman Cory Mills.
Well, that is because of the good work that you, Jill Savage, have done over the last months.
One
and
woman
now
wrecking ball? No, there's a whole team. There's a whole team of people.
It's happening now because of that work and because you also didn't back down from the very beginning on this story. And now all of a sudden you see Congresswoman Mace, who I've had disagreements about or criticized in the past, really taking up this banner and saying, no, this is ridiculous. We can't have this guy sitting on these committees in Congress. And that's an amazing journey.
And it's all because if people are doing wrong, I don't care if it's an R or a D next to their name. Matt Peterson doesn't either. He allowed us to go forth and publish these articles when not a lot of other people would. So thank you for that. And we'll see you back here tomorrow, everybody. Have a great night.